Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. We're so glad you're with us today to stay curious. Look at this beautiful scene behind me, our Florida Peninsula, and we're about right there. We being my co-producer, Marty Winkle. Hey, Marty, how are you?
Doing good, Mark. How are you?
I'm good. I've been in Orlando the last 2 days at SpaceCom. We hope you enjoyed astronaut Charlie Walker on a recorded program that Marty and I did Sunday. What a great guy, always informative. Please go back and watch that on YouTube. And tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit about the SpaceCom over there with a real journalist. CNN's John Zarella is going to be our guest on Stay Curious tomorrow live. So go out and grab the old ladies and tell them to grab the babies and bring them all here. Watch Stay Curious with John Zarella tomorrow. So we'll have a lot of fun with him. Many of us grew up with John Zarella reporting the shuttle era for CNN. So, but yeah, it's been a good week. They pushed back the launch, crewed launch, till Sunday night. That probably makes a lot of Saturday night parties a little droll, but they got to do what they got to do to get those astronauts up there safely. So, yeah, Marty, we've got an interesting program today. Astronauts, and one little pretty lady that helped the astronauts get in their spacesuits. Yeah, you're going to hear about Sharon Caples McDougal here in a little bit as we celebrate Black History Month, talk a couple astronauts, and share with you a little known program that had an important impact on the manned space program, and that was a program with the acronym ASSET, our first little mini space plane in 1960. So, Marty, let's kick it off with birthdays. Got to get my hat out here, and my head's getting too big for that hat. But happy 64th birthday to this astronaut, Clayton Anderson, Expedition 15 astronaut, born February 23rd, 1959 in Omaha, Nebraska. Clayton is the only astronaut from Nebraska. He considers Ashland to be his hometown. He's got 167 days in space on 2 missions, including Expedition 15. There's looks like one of the storage areas there. Speed limit 17,500 miles an hour, and you Europeans know that's 28,000 kilometers an hour. Anderson's total 167 days in space. There he is with his family. Big Nebraska Cornhusker fan there. In football with his family and kids. That's at least 10 years old. But he was a mission specialist on 131 in April 2010. Took the multi-purpose logistics module up there. I think that was Leonardo. He performed 6 spacewalks for a total of 38 hours. So, of course, that long duration on the International Space Station, he was taken up on 117. All right. He wrote a book, The Ordinary Spaceman, From Boyhood Dreams to Astronaut. And there he is autographing that book. And we love it when we've got these special pictures that all the astronauts try to take pictures like this of playing with water in space. And of course, the refractivity of water makes you upside down. But his book is a mix of levity and gratitude. He gives an authentic views of the highs and lows of being on the space station. So not all of it is peaches and cream. The astronauts do sometimes get depressed, missing their families and so forth. So that's another good book to read, The Ordinary Spaceman. And let's see, what other things like other astronauts and cosmonauts? Anderson's a licensed radio amateur. And in case you were wondering, his call sign is KD 5P as in Paul, Larry Alpha. KD 5PLA. And you can talk to him on your ham radio license there. So thank you very much for what you've done in the space program. Clayton Conrad Anderson, 64 years old today, almost a senior citizen. And I'll bet he's having fun today, talking about his life and also sharing and inspiring the next generation of space workers. Well, one other astronaut, and this is an astronaut politician, astronaut Mark Garneau is the Canada's first astronaut. Happy 74th birthday to you, Joseph Jean-Pierre Mark Garneau, born February 23rd, 1949 in Quebec City, Quebec, Canada. In October of 84, he became the first Canadian in outer space, and on STS 41G. Then he was on 77 and 97 for a total of 29 days in space. A member of the Liberal Party of Canada, Garneau was the Minister of Foreign Affairs from January to October 2021, and he's been Minister of Transport for 7 years, 2015 till January 2021. So he's an interesting guy. Here he is in the political arena there last year. He has been an executive vice president of the Canadian Space Agency and is president. So it's tied very directly to the Canadian Space Program, its first Canadian astronaut who parlayed that into a political career of some repute. So happy birthday, 74, to Mark Garneau and Clayton Anderson, 64 years old today on February 24th. So what are we looking at here, Marty? This is a blunt end dart of some kind? No, this is an actually paid and returned to space item called Asset. This is actually in the Dayton Air and Space Museum in Dayton, Ohio. In 1960, we began a program called the Aerothermodynamic Elastic Structural Systems Environmental Tests, ASSET. Aerothermodynamic Elastic Structural Systems Environmental Tests. And this is the preserved reentry vehicle. It was an experiment involving a subscale composite reentry vehicle with all kinds of materials on it, testing reentry surfaces as well as a little bit of aerodynamics for the Air Force and for particularly their dinosaur spacecraft that was going to be a 1 or 2 seater kind of space plane fighter like those Star Wars fighter jets. And of course, that never came to be when the X-20 or dinosaur program was canceled. Built by McDonnell, each of these vehicles was launched in a suborbital trajectory from Cape Canaveral's Pad 17B, all right, and then landed near Ascension Island in the South Atlantic. And on this date, February 23rd, 1965, was the last of this program to be launched. The first was in September of 63. All right, only one was recovered. Out of the 6 launched, they were going to only recover 4, but the other 3 sunk in the Atlantic Ocean. And let's look at that a little bit there, Marty, as you hand me a little sign there. Oh, is that right? You're kidding me.
Nope.
That's cool. No wonder I've been thinking of that beautiful lady that loves our museum. I'll talk about it in a minute there. Yeah, thanks, Marty. He's handed me a cute little note here that we'll have today. So, all right, the Asset program. Here it is. This is this tiny little spacecraft. It's covered with composites, many which were, of course, used not only in the shuttle program, but in today's X-37B space plane. The idea, and we're going to see another space plane that took this to the next level. But there it is in there, and then here it is on top of the Juno rocket, I believe. Take that back. It's the Thor Delta. That's what they used, was the Thor. Originally, a Scout was going to launch it, but they had a lot of Thor and Thor Delta missiles returned from deployment in the United Kingdom. All right, that became available. So this is what this is a Thor first stage. Look at the size of the people on the bottom there, all right? Pad 17 up there at Cape Canaveral Space Force now. And there it is on top. All right, so they were going to get some aerodynamic readings going up And then when it was released, they were going to get some dynamic information there, but it was more to get the feel of the reentry, as this was going to experience temperatures up to 4,000 degrees at the nose cap, and some have aerodynamic heating and stress features there. So it was actually about 6 feet tall by 4.5 feet wide, but it was heavy. Marty, it weighed a half a ton. So an interesting payload there, and there is another asset reentry module, that the one that's in Dayton. That's a different picture of it there. And this was the concept that this little space plane was trying to pioneer in the 60s, was the X-20, or the dinosaur. Could you imagine having a bunch of those in our Air Force arsenal, where you'd get in and maybe not go around the world, but maybe have a squadron of 6 to 8 of these go suborbital and land after deploying some sort of military assets. So, well, this was all evolved then a little bit further into a program called Prime, and I knew nothing about this, Marty. It's fun to do these programs and Google around, and I ran into the Prime program, which was not classified, but it was one of the first reconnaissance vehicles of the National Reconnaissance Office. All right, in 1967, this space plane that here's some it was a lifting body. All right, and here it's called Prime, Prime, and here it is being developed and being worked on at Cape Canaveral, in wherever they were working on them there. This was a space plane that was designed to safely dip the upper reaches of the ionosphere, be surrounded by plasma, and then finally slowing down the speeds and deploying a parachute. It could land on the surface of the Earth and not in the ocean. All right. In fact, an aircraft was going to grab its parachute lines high above the Pacific and winch it in, like they did the Corona spacecraft. All right. But they also wanted the capability to bring it all the way down to the land, and it actually land on skids or something. They wanted to cross. They were trying to incorporate a vehicle like this for years, because the spy Corona spacecraft and other ones on other spy satellites would be ejected and caught by their parachute lines before they hit the water, and that had film in it. The film had to be developed. All right. Well, what the National Reconnaissance Office, though they claimed to have nothing to do with this program, though they did. And here's another picture of that space plane. Kind of looks like that X-37B that the Air Force has out there at one of the old orbital processing facilities. NRO is interested in reducing the time that it took the film to get processed from orbit to photo analysis at Washington, D.C., all right, on those light tables where spies were looking at stuff on there. So so this is something they've been trying to do ever since, was iron out the technical problems for this politically kind of inspired mission of spy versus spy. The connection between Prime and NRO is mentioned in a declassified letter written in 1965 by Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara, that they had a plan for the capability for instantaneous satellite reconnaissance with good resolution and for tactical purposes and so forth. So this was the most visible of the NRO's spy satellite reconnaissance missions back in the 60s, called Prime. So, and now you stayed curious and know. And of course, this little asset vehicle, there's our shuttle concept in the early days, re-entering the Earth in there. And it all started with this little spacecraft launched in 1965 on this date. So, an asset to our country at the time for sure. Big old bold USAF there on the side of that rocket, I love it, love it. And once again, those were Thor, Thor rockets. So, well, for the rest of Stay Curious today, we're going to have a little bit of Black History Month here for 2023 and talk about two astronauts and a lovely lady who I understand Marty says having her birthday today. How timely is that and why I have her on my mind, maybe? Well, let's talk about Robert Stacher. Here's a guy that was robbed of being in space more because of the end of the shuttle era. Robert Satcher, Satcher, grew up in Denmark, South Carolina. He's got a Bachelor of Science degree in Chemical Engineering, all right, from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. That wasn't good enough for him. He went on to study medicine at Harvard and received his medical doctorate in 1994. He did his internship at the University of California, San Francisco, and postdoctoral work at the University of Berkeley, specializing in orthopedic oncology on a fellowship in for the University of Florida. Well, that all got him elected as an astronaut in 2004, all right, and he flew to space for 11 days on STS-129, did 2 spacewalks of 12 hours. And had we not had a 10-year delay in putting more astronauts in space, I'm sure he would have loved to have been part of the International Space Station. But in fact, Robert Satcher, for a decade, was the last African American to go to space. All right, and now I think 18 African Americans have gone to space, including we got to count Michael Strahan for breaking the Kármán line on a suborbital flight. The football player that's turned into TV personality. Well, what's Michael Satcher doing these days? There he is in his EVA suit. Do I have a picture of him? Oh, we'll hear in a minute. There he is on his EVA suit, and there he is doing an EVA. See his face in there, throwing out the peace sign, it looks like. Satcher is an associate of the Department of Orthopedic Oncology at the University of Texas in the Anderson Cancer Center. So he's become a big cancer doctor, particularly bone cancer, orthopedic stuff. He is also part of the Albert Schweitzer Foundation. Albert Schweitzer in the I don't know, 30s, 40s, whatever, was one of the first medical doctors to go into Africa with malaria and all that stuff. Satcher has been in Nicaragua, Venezuela, Nigeria, and Gambia, all right, doing medical outreach there, particularly with orthopedic cancer. So bless you out there doing great things, and we salute him during Black History Month. And now we're going to talk about, well, there is Robert Satcher on the left, all right. Leland Melvin, on the right. And in the middle, thank you, Marty, is our birthday girl. I got a note here. Sharon Caples McDougal. Born Sharon Caples on this day, huh? Gee, not going to guess how young you are, Sharon, but I know you don't look your age, young lady. Sharon has been around in the shuttle era, and she was a... where have I got my little history about Sharon there? She grew up and born in Moss Point, Mississippi, former NASA spacesuit tech at Johnson Space Center. She was in the Air Force and involved with the physiology of the body and translated that into going to Houston and suiting up the astronauts. And there she is in a posed picture. She is one of these modern hidden figures in the African American community or the minority community, Hispanics, Asians. As she was a suit tech, fitting the astronauts in their suits. We've had her on Stay Curious, even patching the spacesuits herself there. There she is. What an honor it had to have been for her to suit up Mae Jemison, the first woman African American in space, in there in about the 2000 time frame. And there is Sharon with another one of our friends here at the museum. Dolores Abrams on the right. Dolores was operations and checkout manager of the astronaut crew quarters, the kitchen, that sort of thing. I've been around Dolores at a lot of stuff around town and haven't just drug her in here. But we will. We should have sat them two down the day they were in here. I forget why we didn't. Maybe they were going somewhere. But they're sharing in our women's gallery that we love. That's Kathy Thornton's blue jumpsuit that she wore around the Cape and Chris Johnson Space Center. So tickled that it's your birthday today, Sharon, because we wanted to feature you with these astronauts that you've suited up, including there's her book, and she's wrote a book that I keep handy here. Where is the book there? It's called Suit Up for Launch with Shay. Cute little book here. The kids could even color it if they want. Let me get that in there. There's my Suit Up with Shay. Well, it's it's all colored in there. And come along as Shay learns about the suits that astronauts wear in space. This is Sharon's idea. And boy, is she really taking this to the road. I'm proud of her. Here you are, Sharon Caples McDougall, and that's how you order this book. Sharon Caples, Caples, McDougall, like it sounds, McDougle. There she is last weekend, Marty, at the Intrepid Museum during Kids Week there in New York City, sharing the love about space and all those astronauts that she suited up in her cute little book there. So, it was a good segue on your birthday, Sharon, to talk about these astronauts, because there you are with the first African-American astronaut go to space, autographed your picture there. That is, of course, Guy Bluford. And let's talk about Guy. This would actually be STS-8 in 1983. So there's that young lady. Not gonna in 1983. Holy cow, that is 30 years ago. That no, 80. He went up in 40 years ago in 83. Yeah, of course, Bluford in 1983. Yep, 40th anniversary, August 30th. We'll be looking at, Marty, of STS-8, Bluford's first mission. There, Sharon is with him. Just a young thing she is there. Of course, Bluford was part of the first three African Americans chosen there with Ron McNair and Fred Gregory. Ron McNair on the left, Fred Gregory on the right. And, it was a special time where we had the first people of color, the first women, and the El Onizuka, the first Asian, going to be suiting up as astronauts. So this man, Guy Bluford, is a revered Penn State Nittany Lion, having grown up and born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, November 22nd, 1942. So he is looking at being 80 years old this year. Marty, do you know what he's inside there? You don't see many pictures with this contraption.
I forget what it's called. That's the escape vehicle, if you will.
Yep, that is. I think they call that was the rescue ball, like a medicine ball. It had a handle on it and a little oxygen inside that you would get in there, and an astronaut in an EVA suit, spacesuit, pick you up and take you in space. I don't know if I'd want to try that, but the early shuttle astronauts all got inside that and checked that out. There's Guy Bluford. There he is on his first mission, getting a nice workout there. 28 days in space on 4 missions. This guy had some tremendous missions, some tremendous time in space for the shuttle era. Of course, he flew Challenger on STS-8 and born in Philadelphia. Just flip that over, Marty. Someone's calling me on my phone that doesn't know anything about Stay Curious, all right? So then I'm usually busy at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Bluford was a pilot at Williams Air Force Base. He got his pilot wings in 1966. He did some... he entered the U.S. Air Force Institute Technology Residency at Wright-Patterson. All right, and he was very into advanced concepts for aeromechanics. in all kinds of aircraft, T-38, 37. He was a T-38 instructor. All right. And of course, that's the astronaut's personal taxi, sort of. So his first spacecraft flight was, get another picture of him, like we said. There he is with this, was in 1983. He specialized in a remote manipulator arm. There he is with his Penn State flag in space. Then in 1985, he was on 61A, the German D1 space lab. That had to have been fun with a couple Germans on there. Bluford also served on STS-39. All right, that was Discovery, a highly, real big science mission where he had getaway specials, and no, they didn't have getaway specials. They had an infrared background signature survey, analyzing the Earth in ultraviolet. Here he is in later years, of course, highly decorated. His last mission to space was a Department of Defense mission. 53 was a DOD mission completely. I think Bob Cabana was on that. He's an Eagle Scout. He even took the Challenger flag. He took to space to a scout troop in there. So, and as we look at Guy Bluford a few years ago in front of a museum display about himself, I found this interesting comment from him on Oprah magazine. He was asked, were there some challenges you faced being the first African American to fly? And he said, we had me, Ron McNair, and Fred Gregory, 3 African Americans, 1 Asian American, El Onizuka. So we recognized that we were breaking the mold with reference to astronauts who were primarily male and white. We knew that one of us would eventually get selected, and also the first woman, all right, was going to be selected. He said it was a no-brainer to El Onizuka being the first Asian American, but he did not anticipate being selected as the first one. However, I was happy to take on that role. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was not only to break the mold, but to help pull other African Americans into the program and get them to fly. I feel honored with reference to not only leading the charge, but helping a bunch of other African Americans who came behind me. I take a great deal of pride in that. And as well he should. At 80 years old, he is representing the African American community and the astronaut corps with dignity, class, and his experiences. So we hope he has a bunch of more years in the tank for Guy Bluford there. Definitely on my bucket list of an astronaut who I'd love to hear talk and personally shake his hand. So, Marty, we've got Warren Lovell watching, Doug Forrest, Gary Gerald, Hazel Banks finding time to watch us, Ophelia Salterell, Carlton Bailey, Sharon McDougal, our birthday girl. I tipped her off that I was going to talk about her today, Marty. So happy birthday, Sharon. You enjoy your day wherever you are, if you're not in your home in Houston with your beautiful husband. And I believe she's got a son and a daughter. I've seen pictures on her website there. So, and glad to promote Shay a little bit here for you. You're really doing some great things, Sharon. And we got Cliff Watson in Australia, sent us 200 stars. Tom UCX watching, Cynthia Rossi, Bill Whiting. Thank you. Bill was very complimentary on our interview with Charlie Whiting, Marty, and we appreciate anybody's critique, good and bad, about our program. And Steve Hammer's watching. He's involved with the space flight website that we're reaching out to you to have you talk about that on Stay Curious. Christopher Mick, Dave Stangy, and Bruno Lakota's watching. Glad that you're all watching, and you know what? We want you all to come back tomorrow because we've got a very special program tomorrow, and that is with this character. Not that character. This character, Mr. John Zarella, CNN reporter extraordinaire for about 3 decades, and a good friend of all the space geeks here on the Space Coast. John, there you are. Not a gray hair in that head. So the Grecian formula is working there for you, brother. But now that's an old picture of him, I'm sure. We're going to enjoy talking about his stint as he was a Miami-based CNN reporter, of course, covering the launches up here. We're going to talk about his good friend and a guy that I got to know real fast. We're going to talk about Hugh Harris passing away just 10 days ago, and get to John's opinion on the climate today, and if I can pull one out of him. Hardy, har, har. But good to have you on tomorrow, John. We look forward to that. You're going to enjoy this wonderful guy. He was really a real credit to journalism's that journalists that covered the space program. Of course, he covered all kinds of other things. So we'll have fun with him tomorrow as you all come back to stay curious. And here we are in our peninsula here, Marty. Hitting almost 90 degrees here. As some of you are experiencing some cold weather and a brutal winter storm, we hope that you all are safe and enjoying Stay Curious. Go out there, throw a snowball at the moon tonight, as it's a crescent moon. And those two planets below it, the top one's Jupiter, the other one's Venus. And Jupiter and Venus are going to merge as one star here in about a week. And we'll be talking about that on Staying Star Curious. So, Marty, anything else on our Streamlabs program there?
No, just several people from Michigan primarily talking about the weather, how cold it is. But
Yeah,
they're all doing fine.
we know it's brutal in the teens and a lot of snow, and unfortunately,
18 inches of snow in Hudson.
18 inches of snow in Hudson. Holy cow. Well, don't bring any of that down here, okay? They were talking about maybe snowing on the Hollywood sign and so forth. So we're doing good here, and we're glad everybody else is. So we appreciate everybody supporting our program. I'll tell you more about some of the surprising support that we're seeing coming from the Space Conference for our museum, as well as Stay Curious. Just having people like Sharon McDougall tune into us and John Zarella want to be on it shows that we're doing something that no other podcast is doing out there, celebrating astronaut birthdays, talking about our African American community during Black History Month, and above all, helping you to enjoy some of the artifacts of our museum remotely and some of the stories that we've heard around the Space Coast. So until we pick it up tomorrow, with Mr. John Zarella of CNN, I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.